Welcome back, folks. Hope you're well. Bit of a yearly rant coming in here. I'll try and keep it fairly light-hearted. I like to think I don't do too much mourning on this channel. I try to keep that to a minimum. Although, contrary to recent feedback I've had, I had one guy the other day commenting saying I was negative, which I found quite cute, to be honest. But yeah, there you go. So maybe you do think I'm negative. I don't know. But yeah, today's video, I'll get into the topic of that in a minute, although you'll probably guess by the title and the thumbnail what it's about. But first off, I just want to say a quick thanks to everyone who continues to watch these videos and leave feedback and interact, and the people who come through the gallery doors and I've met through people watching the videos as well. It's been absolutely great over the past now 3 years, and I'll caveat everything that I'm saying in this video in that none of that is aimed at you. So yeah, big thanks to everyone who continues to support the channel, my little space here on YouTube. But yeah, on to today's video now. As I say, I'll try and keep this as light-hearted as I can. I was on the fence a little bit about doing this video, not because of that comment that I was talking about the other day, but just this general sort of, I don't know, apathy towards landscape photography from a lot of people these days, and anything that is even slightly off positive or, you know, could be seen as polarizing or whatever, people just don't want to discuss it. And personally, I've never got that, because I think it's okay to have different opinions on things and different perspectives, as long as, you know, people are civil about it and use common sense. Then I think those things are a good thing. But yeah, today we're talking about this, what feels to me, and I know this is the case with other photographers because they've spoke to me about it, but I don't know what you think, let me know in the comments. But it feels to me like recently there's been a really sharp uptick in this beginner versus pro, and do this, do that, do this for success, avoid these things, all these, you know, the type of videos I'm talking about. It feels like they're everywhere at the moment, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why I don't think this is a good thing for landscape photography. But yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one and a little bit of a can of worms, because it's a very nuanced subject, YouTube and its algorithm, and why the videos we see on this platform. And yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one, but these type of videos have always been the case on here, in, you know, because it's a very educational based platform a lot of the time for a lot of different things. And in that sense, it's very much a good thing, because if you're a beginner coming into photography, there's a wealth of information on here that you can access quite easily, which you certainly couldn't in the past. So there is definitely a time and a place for that type of content, I think. But it feels at the minute like it's everywhere, and from the creator's end, i.e. me, it feels like this platform is pushing people more and more towards making that type of stuff. Now, I've talked in the past about why I don't make that type of content on here, for business reasons and whatever, but the root of it is I just don't like making that type of stuff. I find it quite boring, to be honest. It's easy to make, it's quite derivative, and a lot of the time what you're seeing is just regurgitated information that's then repackaged into something shiny and new each week. And it's the same old stuff that has been parroted for the last 20 years in landscape photography a lot of the time. So I tend to sort of stay away from that sort of stuff. But I can understand why there's a need for certain people to do that. And we'll get onto that in a bit. But the root of why I don't think it's a good thing for landscape photography at the minute is that, as someone like myself who's working at the sharp end of things in terms of running a gallery like this, multiple workshop tours a year, one-to-ones throughout the year as well, I'm seeing again an uptick in, I would say certainly the last 18 months, where people are coming on workshops and also discussing it here in the shop in person, there's a very technical based approach to a lot of this now. And if you go on YouTube on any given day and just sort of have a cursory browse across what's being suggested to you in landscape photography, there's a huge amount of that stuff. And for me, I feel like it's distorting the importance of this stuff. If I was to give an honest opinion as to how important a lot of these technical aspects are, like focus stacking and hyperfocal distance and exposure blending and all these little nice tricks you can do in post-processing, they're important to a point, and you do need to learn those things. But if I was to put them on a scale, I'd say they'd be lucky if they make up 5% of any success in landscape photography. The other 95% of it, which is unfashionable to say, and it's boring, and it's not the sort of stuff that gets a lot of attention and views on YouTube. But the boring reality of it is that you just need to get out there and do it. That is going to be the most important thing in any development that you have in landscape photography. And I know that sounds very generalized and it's probably a bit oversimplified, but there is no substitute to just getting out there, experiencing the landscape, learning weather patterns, learning how light interacts with the landscape, learning how the seasons work, learning your intimate landscape locally. All of these things, fieldcraft, I would generally put it under an umbrella of, but those are the things that are going to make or break whether you end up being a good photographer or not. It's not learning a lot of that technical stuff straight off the bat. I mean, I've had people, I can think of a good example recently where I had someone on a workshop and they were asking me about focus stacking an image that was being shot at about 150 millimeter. And I'm thinking, why on earth would you need to focus stack an image at 150 millimeter? But that's the kind of thing that I'm seeing now, is that people are coming into landscape photography, buying a load of gear, and then getting really preoccupied with these sort of technical aspects. And conversely, I'll see other people on workshops who don't have that sort of technically minded approach and just want to go and learn and take pictures. And often they have a lot more potential in where they're going to go in their photography, because they're focused on seeing a picture and understanding how building a good composition works. It's not all of that other technical gubbins. So just to be clear, I'm not trying to sort of knock a lot of that technical stuff, and it is important to a point to learn how those building blocks are put in place, but they're not going to make or break your photography. I've seen many photographers who will consider themselves very experienced photographers and have been doing it for years and can tell you to the nth degree about all of that technical stuff, but they can't take a picture. And that's the reality of it. They can do all of that and they know it off by heart because it's easy to grab hold of a lot of that stuff. It's something to cling to. Whereas the more difficult stuff, which is getting out there a lot of the time, putting the reps in, getting to difficult places, putting the groundwork in and learning the landscape, a lot of that's quite unfashionable for a lot of people. So it's a bit of a nuanced thing, but that's the root of why I think a lot of what we're seeing now on YouTube isn't a good thing, to be honest with you. And I do hope as a platform it evolves a bit more, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But from the creator's perspective, what's interesting is that the feedback I get from a lot of people in person when I'm talking about this stuff in this shop, and I like to think I've got a reasonable sample size here to work from, but the interesting thing is that the vast majority of people I talk to don't enjoy that type of content, which is completely at odds with, if you look at the view counts for those type of videos, they get thousands of views and stuff. But the overriding feedback I get is that people want to see people out experiencing the landscape and enjoying it and showing off the landscape rather than constantly just talking about it. So I guess you would probably say to that, well, you know, obviously there is an audience for that, Stuart. You know, the figures bear that out. And I'd agree with that to an extent, but it does make me question, when you look at those type of videos getting so many views, just how many of those people that are watching are actually really invested in landscape photography, or are they just casual viewers who happen to just find the creator entertaining? I don't know. But everything I see and hear rails against how the figures bear out. So it's a bit of a tricky one. And as I say, I do hope YouTube evolves a little bit more, because from the creator's perspective, what I'm seeing on my own videos, and I do hear this from other people who make vlogs as well, and I'm leaving aside the sort of really bigger channels because basically they can just produce whatever they like and people will watch them. But from my own perspective, what I see with videos that are just out in the field, doing the photography, recording it and getting a nice picture at the end, they tend to do less well in terms of views. Now my channel, I've been doing this 3 years now, and I still consider myself a sort of newer creator on here, but I've been doing it enough time to sort of see a trend. And whatever I do with my videos in terms of the type of them or the regularity, it doesn't seem to make any difference. There's just a very, very slow growth on here now. And I guess what I'd say to that is that YouTube as a platform, for me anyway, isn't doing a very good job of distributing the views. Now you've got probably 10 to 20 creators on here in the landscape space, where probably 90% of the views seem to be concentrated, and then the other 5 to 10% are sort of spread around smaller channels. Now, just to be clear, I'm not blaming those creators for that. This is an issue with the platform, because I've heard people say, is interest in landscape photography on YouTube on the wane? Have we reached saturation point in terms of, you know, the number of creators that we have on here? And there's probably something in that a little bit. But when you look at the views on some of those bigger channels, I think there is an audience there, but it's just not being pushed in other directions. I think you've got a lot of really interesting smaller channels with some really, really good photographers out there, and their voices just aren't being heard for me. And I think a lot of those people that are watching those bigger channels are not having that stuff suggested to them, because I can't for the life of me think that they wouldn't also enjoy this other content. So yeah, YouTube, I think, has got a lot to answer for that. And for me personally, I'm coming to a point now, and I've got to be honest with you, I'm coming to a point now where I'm beginning to wonder if the time that I'm investing into doing these videos is worth it. As I say, I'm 3 years into doing this, and because I do this professionally and YouTube is very much a sideline to what I'm doing, my concern is that I'm missing stuff when I'm out shooting now. And there's definitely been occasions where in the last 3 years doing these videos, I've missed stuff and I've dodged a few bullets. There was one shoot in particular back in December in the hoarfrosts where, you know, I got some really good images in the end. That should have been an enjoyable experience. What ended up happening was I came away from that shoot feeling very relieved that I'd dodged a bullet, because I got some really good stuff, but I was so preoccupied with all these other bits and bobs trying to do the video that I nearly missed it. And there's definitely been other occasions, as I say, where I'm missing stuff. And because I'm doing this as a job, I need to really think about the effect that that's having, because what I'm getting coming back from YouTube in terms of sort of channel growth is, at the moment, for the amount of hours that are going into it, and also I think in fairness the quality of the videos that I'm putting out, I don't feel like I'm getting a fair shake of it. And I know a lot of other people are in the same boat as me that have put really, really good stuff out there and just get nothing in return from it, relatively. And that's not being bitter or anything, that's kind of just where the platform is. Now, in my position, I could either do what other people do and just chase the algorithm and start knocking out 10 tips videos and gear reviews and stuff, and I'm sure I'd get more views. But as someone who's been doing this a long time, and I've worked hard to build a reputation with my peers off this platform, I'm not willing to compromise that. So I'm not going to go down that road of just churning out, well, in my views, crap just for the sake of trying to get hits and views. So if it's not going to work this way in terms of just me going out and documenting the landscape photography, I'm going to have a serious think about it, to be honest, which is a shame. And at the moment, I'm thinking I'll continue doing the videos until I feel like it's tipped too far in that other direction. But at the moment, I am having to have a serious think, because the stuff that I'm missing out in the field now, it's hard to quantify in terms of cost, but I know I'm having to make compromises in my photography, and that's the one thing that I will never do, because ultimately these videos, as fun as they are to make, and I've had a lot of fun doing them, it's not my job, basically. And YouTube, in terms of revenue and this, that and the other, is fairly negligible in my business. It's a nice window into my business, and it's good for workshops and stuff like that, but it's not a key driver in any sense. So yeah, I'm gonna have a little think about it. But yeah, little bit of a moan, should we say, but I thought you might find that interesting, just from a creator's perspective more than anything. And let me know what you think. I know it's a little bit of a can of worms topic, this, and as I say, I'm certainly not having a go at other creators for doing this type of content. It's entirely their choice. It's not for me, but I'm more talking about the wider effect on landscape photography than any one individual. People are free to do whatever they like, to be honest, but this is just my opinion. But anyway, next video I'll definitely be out in the field and doing something. It's been the school holidays. I've really enjoyed spending time with my little lads a couple of days a week, and then the other 5 I'm in here. So it's been a bit tricky in terms of getting shooting done. And if you're in the UK, you'll probably know it's been a really crap summer, to be honest. The weather's been so up and down. It feels like it's been permanently autumn weather up here for the last 2 months, and very little in the way of interesting conditions. So yeah, there you go. So let me know, as I say, in the comments, if you've got an opinion on this. Do you feel like you're being bombarded with this stuff like I am every time I put YouTube on, or am I just completely misreading this? I don't know. But anyway, keep liking and subscribing, and I'll see you on the next one.